Speaking of good time, I really like this next question because I think it's going to be a good time this year. Wes Burns, shout out to Wes. He asks, should I spend up on Clyde in fantasy drafts? Now, I'm going to let you start with this one because me and fantasy have a love-hate relationship. And B, I want to know what you think about Clyde this season.
Clyde this season, I'm definitely in on. Especially, there was a site for ADP and fantasy drafts. I don't know where exactly he's going. Let's go to Fantasy Pros. But I'm in on Clyde. Actually, last year I'm in a dynasty league and I traded for Clyde. So I'm definitely in on him this year. I think with offensive line changes, I think with more work in the offseason, getting used to the offense, he's going to be more involved in the passing game. He's going to have bigger run lanes to run through. And I just think everything will click better this year than last year, where it kind of just seemed like everything was going against him being a major contributor. He was a contributor, but I think people were definitely disappointed where they drafted him in fantasy and getting that. I don't know if there's a term for it, but there's a term for a post hype sleeper. That's what it is. He was hyped up last year. He was a first round pick, and now he bummed people out last year. So they're like, I'm not going to draft him this year. Well, it might just be better this year. So I think he's definitely a post hype sleeper. As of now, he's 26 in ADP, which puts him in 12 team leads. That's the top of the third round. I would totally take him there. I would take him mid second round. Like Cam Akers is going above him. I would take Clyde over Cam Akers in a heartbeat. So I would pay up for him. I wouldn't like go first round. I think there's enough good players where I wouldn't do that, but I would definitely pay up a bit for him where he is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at the production last year, 803 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. I think he had like 298 or something, 297 receiving. Like it was
Something like
close to
that. Yeah.
300. Only 1 touchdown. He had like 50 something targets, 36 catches, I believe. I was looking at it earlier. That's the only reason I'm like somewhat close, I think. But
Exact numbers coming
yes,
out
yeah,
of
yeah.
Jordan.
I know. I used to have these stat flashcards when I was little, and like I'd write down how many yards did Jamal Charles run for this year, blah blah blah, and like I would make my like parents quiz me on it, and like I would like punish myself if I didn't get
Oh
everything right.
man.
I'd be like, Jordan, you're not
It
eating
started
dinner
at a young
tonight.
age, huh?
Yeah, yeah. They're like, Jordan, you have to eat your food. I'm like, I didn't get my flashcards right. I'm not doing it. So that's neither here nor there, I guess. But trying to memorize all the Clyde Edwards-Helaire stats, I think he should be a lot more involved in the passing game, hopefully. Better offensive line ahead of him maybe will allow him to stay on the field on short yarded situations. Granted, Darrell Williams is kind of that guy for a reason, so that may not be the case. But Clyde in 2 minute
Yeah.
drills, hopefully, getting some more reps, getting some more screen passes on drills where people are worried about Tyreek Hill down the field, Travis Kelce intermediate, maybe dump the ball off to Clyde wouldn't be a bad idea. Man, especially considering like how good in short areas he is. He's hard to bring down. He's shifty. He has good bursts. So I like Clyde as a fantasy guy this year. I keep telling myself I'm retiring from fantasy and I'm never doing it again. And I said that last year and I ended up in like 5 leagues. So I don't know how many I'm going to play, but
Yeah.
I'm going to end up in one.
You just gotta do one or two. If
Yeah.
you're feeling like burned out or stuff, you can at least put enough like time and effort into one or two. Usually, when you get up to like I was in four last year, I'm like, this is too much. I'm trying to keep it at three, but I'm already pretty much committed to three. So if anybody else asks me for one, I'm gonna be like, I don't know. But yeah, I think the thing with him with Clyde will be just how much he can get in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
And with him, I'm not really concerned about short yardage, like in near the end zone, because they ran a lot of even last year, like dedicated plays to him in the passing game near the end zone. The Chiefs ran for players like Kareem Hunt. So as long as, and those kind of were just unlucky for him in that there was a poor throw by Mahomes, a free guy coming at him on the defense where he just never had a chance. So better execution near the end zone, and he might have had four more touchdowns last year. So I think he'll get more touchdowns, more yards, and I think he's underrated where he is right now.
Yeah, I think so too. And the next question comes from Chandler Wallander. Shout out to Chandler for a great question. He said, assuming a Badger extension, which I don't want to call it a formality, but like the Chiefs aren't going to let him go. I think they're going to get
I
something
don't
done.
think
They
so either.
recognize they need to. But what does the ideal remainder of the offseason look like to you? I think literally the only thing I wrote down, just stay healthy. Do you have anything to add to like a move you'd want them to see or anything?
There are still edge players where I'd be satisfied with them getting. Considering Chris Jones is moving to defensive end, it doesn't have to be somebody crazy. I'm still worried about the depth at defensive end and even defensive line. I did an article I did last week. I did the position spending article for offense, and I just wrote defense this week, and it'll be out sometime this week. But the Chiefs are basically a top 5 spender on the defensive line, and yet I'm still worried about the depth there. At defensive tackle, they're one of the bottom teams as far as rostering defensive tackles. So if there's an injury like, to say, Jaron Reed, Chris Jones might have to move inside more than the Chiefs would want him to right now. So I think they just need depth somewhere on the defensive line. I think there's just more edge players now that are available that I like. So Olivier Vernon, if his health checks out, Melvin Gordon, or all the names. There's still a few out there. So I think one of those, and then just stay healthy. And I just want to see, because it says, what would an ideal remainder of the offseason look like to you? I just want to see more hype about the rookies, because that just means they're performing well. We've already seen hype for a few of them, and just I want it to keep going. Because when you see the stories coming out, that means they're doing well. And I just want to keep seeing players like Noah Gray and Trey Smith make the headlines.
Yeah, 100%. And Olivier Vernon was a guy that who tweeted out something about, like, it was a series of clips. Do you remember who it was?
I think it was Nate Christensen.
Yeah. And said, like, if he's 90% of what he was last year and like is healthy, obviously the Chiefs should take a look 80%? At him. Yeah, he was good enough to where he doesn't have to be anything special, but if he can add something to the group. And the Chiefs are kind of in a weird spot because they have Mike Dana, who's probably a capable early down, like, edge setting type guy. They have Taco Charlton, who inconsistent with the injuries and stuff, but played pretty well in limited time last year. He's that power rush juice off the edge type guy. They have Josh Kando, who's kind of probably going to fit that same mold, at least until he can develop the rest of his game. They have Chris Jones, who gives you more off the edge on early downs, but can't play there all three. Will eventually move back inside to that 3-tech spot. They've got Tim Ward, who just is Tim Ward. Like, he had that one game.
Who knows?
You can't count on him for anything, but he would be a nice surprise to see if he could do something. Then they have Turk Wharton. I've seen people say they want Tershawn Wharton more on the outside. I just don't see it happening. I think that he has like a defined role, and I'd like to see it. But given that,
like I said,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, I'll go. Do the back and forth.
Yes.
Like I said, the Chiefs only have, if you count Chris Jones as defensive end, which I'm thinking personally he's going to play a bit more at defensive end than defensive tackle. The Chiefs have 5 defensive tackles on the roster right now. And that's pretty low for the league. Most teams have 7 and 9. So if you just consider that in depth, you don't know how injuries will hit that. It's just, even defensive end for the Chiefs is one of the lower compared to the rest of the league too. So I'm just like, add one more body. I just want to see that, and I'll feel good about the group. Olivier Vernon would really round them out.